Hey guys and girls, welcome to another video. This one is on square roots. And before we discuss square roots, we first have to talk about what a perfect square is. So just say you have a square, and if you remember finding area from previous years, area would be the formula would be side multiplied by side or length times width. So what we know about a square is it has all equal sides. But when we're talking about a perfect square, it means that those sides are all whole numbers, so we don't have any decimals at all. Okay? So just say the area of the square is 25 centimeters, and again, we have the little square there. So 25 centimeters squared. What would this side be, and what would this side be? So again, keeping in mind that it's all equal sides, it has to be the same number multiplied by itself to give you 25. So the answer would be, this is 5 centimeters times 5 centimeters, because 5 times 5 equals 25. So 25, this square here, is a perfect square because it has two whole numbers that when you multiply them together give you 25, and they're whole numbers, not decimals. And again, the number has to be the same. So it can't be 4 times 5 or 6 times 7. It has to be the number multiplied by itself. Okay, so I have two more squares here, and I want you to think, before I give you the answer, what the dimensions could be. So what are the side lengths? Because each of these squares you see here are perfect squares. So for 36, we have to figure out what two whole numbers, when you multiply them together, give you 36. It has to be the same number. So the answer would be 6 centimeters times 6 centimeters, because 6 times 6 is 36. For 81, it would be 9 centimeters by 9 centimeters, because 9 times 9 is 81. So when we're dealing with square roots, we're working backwards from what I just did. So for example, if I said that the area of this square is 81 centimeters squared, another way to write that could be 81, and this is a square root sign that you put over top of it. And when you square 81, when you do that on your calculator, I mean, we can do it mentally, but we're going to start off using our calculators for that. And when we do that on our calculator, we'll figure out that when you square root 81, we're going to get 9. And what does square root mean? It means that when we do this little symbol on the calculator, we're going to find out what a number multiplied by itself is that's going to give us this big number here. So on the calculator, there's a few different things depending on the calculator that you have. Some calculators, you would press the square root button, and then you would press the number that you want to square. Other calculators, you would, give the number that you want to square, and then you would put the square root sign. So you're going to have to, in class tomorrow, we'll play around with what your calculator is and how you best get the square root. So basically, when you're finding the square root, it's that smaller number that when you multiply by itself gives you that bigger number. And I'll do a couple more examples. So for example, if we were to square root 144, if we did that on our calculator, we would find out that it is 12, because that would mean 12 times 12 equals 144. If we did 25, if we were trying to find the square root of 25 on our calculator, it would give us 5, because 5 times 5 equals 25. If we did 169 on our calculators, the answer would be 13, because 13 times 13 equals 169. Okay? So reasons why we would use square roots is, we could find the dimensions of things. If we want to find the dimension of, a square gym mat, for example. We know the what the area is, and we want to find out what the dimensions of the mat is. If we know that it's a square, if we know our perfect squares, we would know that each side length would be 12 centimeters. So there are certain, when we're finding the square root, there are certain ones that we need a calculator for, because I don't expect you to know it, but there are certain ones that you can use mental math for as well. For example, if I asked you to find the square root of 4, all you have to think about is what number multiplied by itself is going to give you 4. And the answer is 2, because 2 times 2 equals 4. So if I said, what's the square root of 4, you would just put down 2. That's how you would do that. Another question you might encounter is, I might give you a square and just say, you know, the area of this particular mat or square is 25 centimeters squared. What are the dimensions? And again, the dimensions are the side lengths, okay, just to try and get used to that math language again. I know it's been a while. And you would say, oh, the dimensions are 5, oops, not squared, and 5. So just to recap, when we're dealing with area, we're always dealing with centimeters squared. The side lengths are not squared. The side lengths are just, you just give the units centimeters or meters or kilometers or what have you. But when we're actually giving the answer, the area answer, don't forget that it's squared. Okay, and the question that I'd like you to answer to see how well you are understanding this video is this question here, number 4. So the mats in judo are squares with a minimum area of 36 meters squared and a maximum area of 64 meters squared. Sketch the diagrams of the mat on grid paper. Grid paper would be very helpful if you don't have grid paper at home. I'm going to try and remind you to bring home your math notebooks. I mean, you can do it with a regular piece of paper, just kind of do it to the best of your ability. So you're going to sketch the diagrams of the mat on grid paper and what are possible whole number dimensions. So again, we're just dealing with perfect squares here. We're not dealing with decimals. So what are possible whole number dimensions of the mat? And you can check that by multiplying. Okay, have a good night, guys. See you tomorrow.